Okay, today what I want to talk about is a kind of a 3dsMax 101 on how to set up Max, how to set it up for production, how to configure it so that it's set up that it's easy to share your files. You know, eventually you're working in a production pipeline in the side of a company, and you need to share your files with other people they're working on a project together. So there are specific ways that you need to set Max up. Max has a folder structure that you can set up a specific way, and then everything was organized. You know, I run into students all the time. They're just chaotic in the way they approach things. They just open up Max and they start building things, and then they go to the internet and they think downloading bitmaps and throwing them on their desktop and just bringing them into Max and throwing on things, that's how you texture, which is not how you surface things. We don't want a chaotic environment. We want an organized environment so that we can, share our files in an organized way. And, when you're in a production environment, nobody wants to be dealing with somebody who's just chaotic. Okay, we need to be able to share our files, and so there's a specific way to do it, and I want to show you how to do that today. Okay, so I've got just a box here that we're just going to do a simple texturing on it. But the first thing we want to do is always name our object. So we've come up here, and here's our box. And so we can go over here to our modify panel, and then we can name this, and we'll just call this cube. So you always want to name your stuff. You know, I get tired of seeing people's projects sent to me, and it says cylinder, 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 plane, 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 box, 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 box. Okay, that's not an organized structure. Organize your stuff. Take a second and name your things, because you're sharing your files. You're sharing them with me. When you share your files with me, I need to know, okay, this is a table, that's a chair, not this is a cube and that's a cylinder. So take the time for that. Okay, the first thing you need to do is to set up a nice folder structure. Okay, so there are several ways to do that, but the easiest way is this. You want to start off by initially making yourself a folder. So here I've made myself a folder. I've called it 3dsMax Projects. Okay, so you want to make yourself a folder. In your case, you might want to make a base folder that is for this class called Animation and Material and Lighting. So you might want to make a folder or something like that. I don't care what you name your folder, but you just want to keep it organized. Okay, then what we're going to do is Max will set up an automatic structure here for us. Okay, to do that, you go up here, there's a little button right up here that's called Project Folder, and you click on this button, okay, and then you find your way back to your computer where you want to bring those files in at. So I'm going to go here to 3dsMax Projects, and then I'm going to create a new folder inside of that. So I'm just going to go right here and click New Folder, and we'll just call this one Week 1. Okay, so this would be like your Week 1 project. Okay, and click OK. Then what's going to happen is Max is going to make a folder structure for you. Okay, so once you actually put that structure in here, if we go in, this is where we made our Week 1, and if we go and look inside of that now, you'll see that Max has put a whole slew of folders in here. Okay, and so it's created a nice folder structure for us. This archives folder, that's when you want to archive something, you doing a specific type of zip file that you're archiving for Max. I'll show you how to do that in a few minutes. You put it in there. Auto backups, where it's putting Max saves an auto backup every 5 minutes. It saves one, it does 3, and then it kind of cycles those, and I'm going to show you how to set that up too. Okay, you've got an export folder. The purpose of that folder is when you export things, you export in that folder. If we want to import things, we import it from that folder. Material libraries, people get confused about this. I'm going to show you material libraries today. People think that's where you put your bitmaps. Bitmaps are not material libraries. That's a different kind of thing. That's not where you put your texture files in there. Previews, sometimes we need to do previews in Max for animations or animated textures. They go in that folder. Your render output, that's where when we render things out of Max, that's the folder it's going to go into. Scene assets, that's one of our key folders. If you go inside of that one, there's folders inside of it. Images, that's your key folder right there. These are all the assets that we need to render our scenes, and so your texture files, your bitmaps go in the images folder. Okay, sometimes we have animated textures like QuickTime movies or AVIs, those go in animation folders. Sometimes we have AES files, that's a specific type of file to set up a photometric light a specific way. You put those in there. There's certain kinds of assets that we need certain times that we'll put in render assets. Sometimes what we'll do is calculate a final gather render beforehand, and we'll put it inside of there. And then sometimes we're bringing in sounds, like maybe we're doing lip syncing for animation. We'll put them in there. So these are all the assets where we put things that we need to have Max work properly, and this is kind of our go-to folder, and specifically in this class, the images folder, that's where you put all your textures, is in that folder. Okay, your scenes folder, that's where your Max file will be. Your Max files are in the scenes folder. I see people saving them outside here. No, you save them in the scenes folder. As a matter of fact, if you set this up, that's where it's going to want to take them right off the bat. Like right now, we want to save this file. So if I come in here and go save as, where am I at? I'm in the scenes folder. Okay, it's automatically putting them in here. So I'll just go ahead and name this. I'll call it Cube. Save it in there. Now, another thing that you need to be aware about Max is it's very good at wanting you to save things in stages, and you need to get used to saving stages. I have students all the time that screw up. They'll work 60 hours on something, then the file gets corrupted, and then they're whining to me. I don't want to hear any whining. Okay, you need to have a strategy. Here's the thing you need to know about computers. Computers are evil. Okay, software is evil. It wants to screw us up. So we have to be smarter than the software. Okay, so what you want to do is save in stages, and Max is set up that way. So when I go in, and I've worked on this for maybe about 10 or 15 minutes, and I've worked on it, and then I want to save it, I don't do save, I do save as. And then I come up here at the top, save as, and then there's a little plus button down here in the bottom right-hand corner, and I click that. And now you'll look up here at the top, it says Cube 01, okay, and I work another 15 minutes or so. And then I go save as again, and then I click the plus button again, and now it's going to say 02. So you're saving your work in stages. That way, if the file gets corrupted, we've only lost about 15 or 20 minutes of work, not 60 hours of work, because you keep overwriting the same file all the time. And here's the thing you need to know. Sooner or later, your files will get corrupted. That's just the nature of software. Like I said, software is evil. It wants to screw our life up, so we have to be smarter than it. Okay, a couple of things that I would have you beginners do is to set up Max a specific way. Okay, now right off the bat, we need to set Max up in a specific way, which is we're going to be using physical-based lights and physical-based rendering, so we need to go to our render setup right off the bat, and we need to load Mental Ray. So right here where it says renderer, yours by default will say the default scan line render. That's Max's old ancient 1920s renderer. Okay, it's an okay renderer, but it's not physical base. We have Mental Ray in here, so we want to switch to Mental Ray. So you always want to do that. Okay, so we want to switch to Mental Ray. Then the other thing you want to do is set up your measurement system. Okay, so if you go to Customize Unit Setup, by default this is going to be on generic units. Okay, well, the problem with generic units, like if we click on this cube over here and we go to its measurements, you will see that its measurements are in units, and I don't know how big that is. Okay, we don't want that because we're in a physical based system, so we need to know how big something is. So the way we're going to set it up is under there. I'm in America, so I'm going to do US standard feet with decimal inches. Okay, you could use other settings as well, but that's what I'm going to use. Now this is just the measurement. This doesn't change the scale of the room. This is just, you know, what I'm measuring, what those measurements are going to be. And I use feet with decimal inches. I could do fractional inches, but I don't want to type in a quarter inch, an eighth of an inch. I want to type in decimals. So I go here. Now, this button up here, System Unit Setup, this actually sets the scale of your room, okay? And a lot of people use meters. I either use feet or inches, okay? It's just according to what I'm doing. When I'm doing smaller types of things, like I'm building, say, bike pedals, you know, and gears for a bike, then I'll probably do it and measure in inches, okay? If I'm doing a big room, okay, well, I don't want inches, I want feet, so that I can set it 8 feet tall or something. So according to what you're doing, this changes the scale, okay? You'll always want to do all this first. So we're going to go ahead and go for feet right now, and then US standards, and click OK. Now, every project you do, you need to set up, but there's some specific things for people that are new that I would tell you to also do, okay? Like if you go into your preferences, so go to Customize Preferences in here. One of the things I would tell you to do is under Files right here. Right down here is your Auto Backup. and you'll see that it's going to save auto backups. It says it saves 3 files, and I've got mine set for every 20 minutes. So every 20 minutes save a file. And what you would want to do is, I don't know, maybe set this for 20 files. So it sets 20 files before it starts cycling. What I mean by cycling is, right now it saves 3. So it saves 1, and then, you know, in my case right here is 20 minutes. The default's 5, but I've already changed mine. So, you know, you would go 20 minutes in my case, then it saves another one. Okay, then 20 minutes and it saves another one. I have 3. And then it goes 20 minutes, and the next one it saves, it overwrites the oldest one in there, so it cycles between the 3. Well, for me, that's probably okay with the way I do things, because I save quite often, but I see students that not have good saving properties, so you want to give yourself lots of outs. So maybe 20 in here, so it's saving 20 versions of it, okay? Now, also, if you go over here to your General tab, up here's your levels of undo, and by default, it's 20. I can tell you, you're a student, you don't know what you're doing, you're going to be messing up a lot, you're going to want a lot of undos, so come in here and set this for 100. Okay, so you have 100 undos. Okay, click OK. Now you've got Max set up pretty good to save a lot of backups, to have a lot of undos. So as you're doing things and you need to back up, you know, if it crashes or whatever, then you're set up, you know, and you're not losing a lot of time. Okay, now let's go ahead and talk about putting a texture in here, because this is where a lot of people screw up. Okay, what they do is they'll go to the internet, and they'll find something, and then they want to just save it, and then they'll just save it to their desktop. Okay, first of all, no professional ever works off their desktop. Okay, you don't work off your desktop, you don't clutter your desktop. Okay, what you want to do is make a folder on one of your internal drives. Okay, the C drive, the D drive, it could be an external drive. I have a lot of drives to mine, but where you don't want it is on desktop. That's how I can always tell an amateur, kind of hobbyist, is when I pull up their file and the first thing I see is they're loading their textures from the desktop. Yes, they're a hobbyist. Okay. Now, where we save our texture files, here's our folder, week 1. They go inside of scene assets, and then it goes inside of images, and that's where I save it, right there. That's where it belongs. Now, I see people do this all the time. I tell them to do that, but they don't do that. They go ahead and put them on the desktop. Mr. Eudy, he doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. You know, I'm going to do it on the desktop. He'll never know. Yes, I will, because what we have inside of Max is called pathing, and I'm going to show you that. Okay, so we're going to come into our material editor now, and we're going to use an Arch and Design. Now, see people using standard shaders. These are garbage, stupid shaders. These are like 1930 shaders. We don't want to use these. I use these sometimes in my viewports just because they are stupid, but when you want to do good quality renders, you will not be using standard shaders. We're going to come down here and use an Arch and Design shader. This is a physical-based shader that understands how this understands physics and how light hits surfaces and how it bounces and penetrates or reflects. This is a much more advanced shader. Okay, so for right now, let's go ahead and we're going to load a diffuse in here. Now, there's a couple of ways you can do that. You can go in here, diffuse, pull into the background, go standard, bitmap, and then you can load the bitmap in. Okay, and then there it is. Okay, that's one way to do it. Okay, another way to do it is over here on the side, you have materials first. Okay, so there's your standard materials, then your mental ray materials. You can pull down into our maps, and there's your bitmap, so you can pull that in, and then it's going to ask you, well, what do you want to load? Okay. Or another way is you can drag and drop them in here. So if we actually had our folder and we went into our scene assets images, you can take that and actually drop it in here. Unfortunately, it don't let you drop one at a time. It'd be nice if you could pick 4 or 5 of the textures and drop them in here and it would load them, but it doesn't. It just does one at a time. Okay, and then I would want to plug that in my diffuse. Diffuse is color or pattern. And then I want to apply this to my cube. And you'll see it doesn't show up in there because we have to click this button to show it in the viewport. Now you'll see it in there. I want to name this material. Okay, so we're going to call this concrete for what the material is, and then it's on a cube, so we're going to call it concrete cube. You want to get in the habit of giving them names like what the kind of surface it is and then what it's on, so that you know, sooner or later in some kind of production pipeline you'll be sick, somebody needs to come in and open your file and they need to know what's going on. So I see students all the time go naming things like concrete 1, concrete 2, concrete 3, concrete 4, Concrete 5, that's stupid, okay? Who the heck knows what that is, okay? You need to name what it's on. For an example, let's say we're doing a city street and a house with a driveway and a garage. So we have concrete in the garage, and then we have concrete on the driveway, and then we have concrete on the curb, and then concrete in the street. So you should name them that way. Concrete, name them that way. So that's easy if somebody else comes in here and they're pulling up and they're looking in your material library and they see 4 concretes, they know, oh, this is the one that goes on the street, this is the one that goes on the sidewalk, name it specific, okay? All right, so now you can see our surface on here. Now let's talk about the pathing so you understand this. I'm going to double click on this bitmap. Right here, it has the path of this bitmap. I can put my mouse on it. It says, okay, this object, this map is in the 3dsMax projects week 1 scene assets images. I know that's correct. 90% of all you students, when you're sending me your stuff, yours says C drive, desktop. Oh my gosh, how much of an amateur can you be? Okay, let's get into the professional world and do things professionally. All right. Okay, so that sets that up. Okay, now let's talk about some other things real quick while I've got you in here. Let's talk about pixel density and unwrapping things. People are real confused on this. So we'll pull in a checker pattern. Let's put a checker pattern on our object, okay? So we'll plug it into the diffuse on here, and then we're going to tell it to show up in our viewport so we can see our bitmap in here. Now, this is a procedural texture. It's a 2-dimensional procedural texture, and it's really good to show pixel density on objects and see stretching and stuff, so that's what we use it for. I can come over here and give it any kind of tiling I want to give it whatever size I want. It's just whatever I put in the U, I need to put in the V so that it's doing the same thing to both of these. Okay, so let's go for something like maybe 10, so we can see the size of our checkers in here. Now, this object, primitives by themselves have a specific mapping coordinate already on them, but we'll want to change that. So we're going to go ahead and convert this to a poly. And then I'm going to go in here and I'm going to add an unwrap on top of this. Okay, so we're going to add an unwrap UVW on it. And then we'll just go in and open up the UV editor. And then we're going to get something like this, because what's really happening here is it's got all of your objects, all your edges just sitting on top of each other like this. Okay, so the same thing goes on every edge. Okay, what we're going to do is just do a quick unwrap. So what we're going to do is to go to unfolding, fold mapping, and we're going to unfold it. Okay, I'm going to turn off my checkers up here. And now it's unfolded that. Okay, so now the checkers will wrap from one side to the other. Okay, and so we've got an unwrapped piece. Okay. Now I'm just going to right click and go ahead and convert this to a poly. What that does is permanently embeds that in there. I can always come back to it by putting it back on top, but I can't, with the way I had that unwrap, if I accidentally deleted that off there, I would lose all that information. So I've baked it in. Okay, so now what we want to do is talk about multiple objects being unwrapped at the same time. So we're going to go ahead and scale this one down. Okay, now once I scale it down, now this object no longer, its coordinates are no longer correct in relationship to the world. Okay, so in other words, when I use the scale tool, I see people do this all the time, it's okay to use it, but you have to reset its transformation. Every 3D program has 2 environments. The object has coordinates, the world has coordinates. And right now I have a disconnect between my object coordinates and my world coordinates. In Max, to fix it, you go over here to your utilities panel up here, you come down to reset X form, you hit reset selected, right click and convert it to an editable poly, and now it's realigned to our world. So both of these are realigned. So now what I'm going to do is pick both of these. Okay, so I have both of these objects picked. Okay. And let's go off of realistic. Let's go to shaded. Okay, pick both of them. And I'm going to go right up here and right click and go down to display selected edge faces, and I'm going to turn this off. Now, some people leave this on, which means anytime you touch something, you get a wireframe. I want to be able to control whether I want the wireframe on or not. Okay. In order to do that, I have to have that off. Okay. And if I have that off, then my F4 key will turn my edge faces on and off. Okay, So if I want them on when I select it, or I want them off. So that's the way I prefer to work. Okay, so I'm picking both of these. So now this is the thing where a lot of people falling down. They unwrap one object, then they'll unwrap another object, and you can initially do that. But then what you want to do is bake all that in, and now you want to pick both of them, or however many objects that you need to pack together, and now add an unwrap and go inside of here, and both of them are going to be in here. Okay. Now, you'll look at this right now, and you'll say, well, I only see one. That's because they have the exact same coordinate on them. And so I need to move one off of the other. Okay, so that's our two pieces. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and go in and start packing these. Okay. I'm not sure why that did that. Shouldn't have broke that off. What is this? I'm not sure why it did that. I'm going to dump this off of here. See what happened on that. Yep. Well, I didn't stitch those together, but we'll stitch it together. That edge there, stitch selected, those are stitched back together. I don't know why it broke that off. It shouldn't have, but now they're back together. Okay, and here's another cool thing I'll show you here. Okay, I've got this one wrapped, right? So I'm just going to go ahead and convert that to poly, bake that in again, okay? And then I'm going to put this UV unwrap on this again. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to take it over on this one. I'm going to paste it on this one, and that just unwrapped that one. Because both of these had the exact same structure, same poly vertex count, and so it just unwrapped that one to be the same as the other one. Okay, so let's convert that in. So both of these are unwrapped. So now we're going to pick them both again, which is what I was trying to do a while ago. And unwrap UVW, bring them in. Okay, so there's our objects, and we'll just pick them both and tell it to pack them. Now, the problem that you have is we know these are not the same size. Okay, so what you'll see is we're going to have a pixel density problem. As a matter of fact, let's make our pixels, our boxes, a little bit smaller. Let's go for, say, 15. Then we can kind of see the shift. See how these are much smaller than that one? So all I have to do is to come in here and pick that object, and then I have to start scaling it. Okay, and I'm scaling it down until I can get those squares to be about the same. They don't have to be perfect, but they should be pretty close to the same thing so that our pixel density is about the same on those. Okay, and then I can pack it. Okay, now a couple of things on packing. You want to use as much space as possible. I want to scale this one up. See, we've got some extra space in here. So I've got my scale on, and then I'm going to go right up here, and I'm going to pick this little box with the little red tick in the bottom left-hand corner. Okay, so what that's going to do is anchor here. So as I scale, it's going to scale from there. Then I'm going to do the same thing with this one, but I'm going to anchor it in the top left-hand corner so I can scale from there. And now I'm using more of the pixel space. Just so you understand, one of the things that makes things take a long time to render is it has to load this whole bitmap up into RAM to render. So the more that I have the pixels that show up on my objects, then the more efficient I am with rendering. All this area that's around the outside is not going to show up, but I still am wasting resources with those. So we want to use this space as much as possible. As a matter of fact, if I had another object in the scene, I might put it in here or parts of it in here to pack this thing as much as possible. Okay, then at that point, I've got those done. I can go ahead and go up here and render a template. And maybe, we're doing a 2048. And I'm going to do solids. So I'm going to say solid right here. And render. And then that's going to get me my bitmap template that then I can take into Photoshop and to texture. Okay, and so that's how you do multiple objects. Then I can go ahead and just bake that in. Okay, and just so you know, once it's baked in there, it's permanent. Then I can just come back to this one if I just want to play with this one for a little bit. I can play with it separate. I can come back into it, and you'll see its area is all that's showing up. The other piece is taking up that, but it's just taking up this. But the thing about it is you don't want to be moving any of this after you start painting your textures, because then your textures won't be correct. So you unwrap, and then we paint the textures. Okay, I think that's about all I wanted to go over. That shows you how to set up, oh, no, one thing. I'm sorry, I almost forgot. How to archive now. Okay, so let's put our texture map on here so we have a bitmap to archive with. So we'll go ahead and drop this back in here. Okay, so let's click to show it in our viewport. There we go. And so that's in there. And so now I want to archive this. Okay, to archive it is so easy. I don't know why. Gosh, I spend hours telling students, archive your work, archive your work, archive your work. And they say, oh, I don't want to do that, I don't want to do that. And so, you know, what they're doing is things like going in and going into this folder and grabbing all of this and zipping it. No, that's not archiving. I don't want all that crap. Okay, go in here, your auto backup. You're going to have all these auto backup files in here. I don't want those, okay? You're going to have multiple copies of you shouldn't be sending me this. I have people send this all the time. They'll send me 6 Max files. How do I know which one you want me to look at? Don't send me 6 Max files. Send me the one. All you got to do is archive it, okay? So all you got to do is go right up here, save as, okay, pull in here. Oh my gosh, look, there's a button that says archive. Oh my gosh, there's a button. Okay, you click on that. Go up here, send it into your archives folder. Give it a name. It'll default to the name of your project. Maybe that's fine. Click save. Okay? Then what it did is you'll see a little black flash of your DOS window pop up, and then what it did was it saved a zip file. There it is. And the zip file is not your entire folder structure. It is the Max file, and it is any of the files that I needed to do this, okay? So that program files, you'll have one in here because there's a little star filter that always comes with Max, and it automatically puts that in here. But here's my 3dsMax projects folder. There's my week 1. And then it's going to say, oh, well, he had something in scene assets that we needed. And so it loads that. It goes, oh, what we needed was in the images folder. So go in there, and oh, looky there. There it is right there, okay? That's archiving, and that's what you should be putting up. You put this up. Don't zip your whole folder and put the whole thing. I don't want all that. That's a waste of your time, waste of my time. That's an enormous amount of stuff to put up. I just need the archive file, and then, of course, the PDF file that you were supposed to put up so I can see your renders, too. Okay, hopefully that can help some of you people out that are struggling with understanding how to set your folder up and how to archive things. Okay, thank you very much.